Howdy everyone, it's Sam. Welcome back to Wobble and Jaw Sports. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider to like the content and subscribe to the channel. But if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. Anzac Day, obviously the biggest day on the Australian calendar. And I'm so grateful and lucky to be talking about the upcoming round of footy with dating the enemy. It is always such a special time whenever these two are on the stream, Jack and V. How are you? It's so good to talk to you guys again. It's awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're good. We're excited.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Awesome. Now, all the links to their podcasts and all that will be popped into the description box below at the conclusion of this live stream. So please keep an eye out for that one as well. Victoria, starting with you first, Anzac Day. Have you got some relatives that have defended in the Army or the Air Force or Navy? What does it mean to you? You must have a bit of a interesting story or backstory, I should say.
Yeah, if I'm completely honest, actually, I do. My dad was in the Army, but he was in the US Army, so not exactly relevant with Anzac Day. But having a father who has served in the military and, was very, very proud of the fact that he did. He was located in Germany and Checkpoint Charlie, everything like that. So it's a part of his history that he's really, really proud of. So, regardless of what army he actually served for, it's still that same sort of element of, putting yourself out there, putting yourself on the line, everything like that. And so I'm really proud to know that, I've got someone like that in my family who has that, history. And as I said, regardless what country it is, I shared that same kind of I guess pride and, remembrance and everything like that.
Jack?
Yeah, so my family, actually, we don't have much of a link to the military itself. But I think families such as mine, I think we are sort of emblematic of what Anzac Day has actually become as the years have gone on, where sort of the love and support that everyone shows for this day and the pride that people take in this day has gone to the entire public of Australia. Basically, it's probably the most uniting day in Australia, whereas it almost used to just sort of be for veterans and then families of veterans.
Yeah. But for me, I've got a cousin that has been or was part of the army for a really long time, and my grandma and my grandfather met each other in the Air Force, and then when my grandfather passed away, maybe 4 years ago now, maybe 5, it was just it was really sobering for a lot of different reasons. But when the last post struck up as well, it was really it was beautiful, but also really sobering at the same time. But this round of footy doesn't obviously happen without what the Diggers did over 100 years ago now, and I'm as proud as punch to be an Aussie. And it's always a very, very special time, as you said, Jack, that this is the one weekend. I mean, you got Australia Day, but that's a different kettle of fish. But it is the 1 year or one day of the year where all Aussies do band together. It is sort of like the unofficial Australia Day in that sense. But let's, with all due respect, let's get a little bit more lively and talk about this weekend. Let's go into the first game. So we've got 3 contests happening on Anzac Day this Thursday, and game number 1 is emanating from Go Media Stadium. The Warriors are hosting the Gold Coast Titans, and on Sportsbet, the Warriors, they are $1.20, and the Titans are $4.60. For the team list now, the Titans are unchanged, and the New Zealand Warriors, they've got themselves some team list changes themselves, actually. But Victoria, starting with you, what do you think this game is going to? How do you think this game is going to unfold?
I don't know. It's actually a bit of an interesting one because both teams are coming off almost like opposite games. I think the Titans would take a lot from their performance on the weekend. You know, they really challenged Manly, and I think a lot of Manly fans are saying that they think their team just performed really poorly. But at the end of the day, they still scored 30 points. Well, sorry, they scored 34, and the Titans still scored 30. So, you know, you don't take nothing out of scoring 30 points. You know, you don't just write that game off and, you know, go on your merry way. Whereas the Warriors got thrashed by the Dragons. So I think, you know, a little bit, I would still say the Warriors are most likely going to win, but I wouldn't be surprised so much if the Titans did challenge them a little bit, because they're itching for a win. That's now, so they lost in the dying seconds against the Raiders and then challenged Manly and only lost by 4. And, you know, it's always one of those things, realistically, you don't ever see a team go like, you know, defeated the entire season. Like, you know, they do eventually get a win. And round 8 seems about that time that can usually happen. Once a team starts copping a couple injuries, everything like that, they just seem to go across and go, we need to finally win. We need it more. And so I wouldn't be surprised. Look, I think the Warriors are still going to win, but I wouldn't be so surprised if the Titans did challenge them.
Yeah, I agree with you. And just quietly, I've got a lazy old eye on that Titans Cowboys game that's coming up in a couple of weeks' time, man. Who do you think might be? Who do you think might be the team that gives them their first victory, eh? It wouldn't want to be.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that'd be pretty bad.
It would want to be. Jack, question to you about the Warriors, man. Do you think that we have seen them? Do you think we've seen the Warriors at their absolute best this season, or do you think they're just not struggling? Is probably too harsh of a word, but do you think the Warriors they haven't quite been able to produce their absolute best footy this year, or do you disagree with that?
Yeah, I think the Warriors, we've seen sort of glimpses and moments where you go, oh, that's the Warriors of last year. And you can tell that they're not, you know, a bad team or anything like that, but they just haven't been able to do it consistently, I don't think. I thought the Newcastle game, they were really, really strong. And I thought that was going to be their sort of launch pad back into the season. But I guess it's just sort of the nature of how unpredictable this year has been so far that we haven't seen just how good they are or they can be. I think it's coming, but you know, how long is it going to have to be of these sort of inconsistent results before we sort of change our perception of the Warriors?
Yeah, agreed. And look, just a little bit of history and a little bit of backup for the Gold Coast Titans. This is their first trip to Mount Smart Stadium since 2022. On that occasion, they won. So their last trip to Auckland, that did result in a W for the Gold Coast Titans. And as a matter of fact, since the year 2018, the Titans have won 5 of the past 9 encounters between the Warriors. So they've got a little bit of momentum against the boys from across the ditch. AJ Brimson, man, Victoria, Des Hasler, I credit him for maybe 2 weeks for trying to see how AJ would go, but it was just the wrong call, wasn't it, to have him playing centers in the first place? Because since he's started to drift a little bit further back into that number 1 role, he's starting to just light it up, and so too the Titans they're starting to change gears, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you saw AJ's try on the weekend. It's very clear what he can do. We see it time and time again, and they're a lesser team without him, and even more so when he's not in the position that he can thrive the most. I think it's pretty clear he's a through and through fullback, in my opinion. You know, I haven't analyzed him enough defensively to say whether he's a solid defensive fullback, but he can score them points. And not that that's the most important thing, but especially last year and at the beginning of this year, that was proving to be an issue, is that they couldn't score points, and you can't win unless you score points. And so I think as a, you know, simple under sixes kind of mentality, you got to get your best players the ball the most. And I think the way for that to happen is to have him at fullback.
Yep, 100%. And Victoria, we've got Tanner Boyd and Kieran Foran in the halves this weekend. Would you would you have maybe tried a Tom Weaver instead of having a Tanner Boyd? Or are you happy to see Boyd have one more shot or consistently walk that tightrope? Or would you have Tom Weaver come in instead for Boyd?
As a fan of a team that has watched their halves struggle the last few weeks, I don't know why he'd bring him back in. And I did not know he was back in. That, never mind, Warriors, go ahead. Like, that really surprises me, if I'm completely honest. And like, I like Tanner Boyd. I think, you know, sure, he's a nice guy, but you know, like, he could be a nice guy in Queensland Cup.
So condescending.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Look, we were at that Bulldogs game, and the Bulldogs were not that good, in my opinion. I thought they were okay, and they scored 32 points. And Tanner Boyd was terrible. He was really, really poor. And I'm such a big fan of, like, holding a player accountable for their performances, especially when they're somewhat of a senior player. Like, I know he hasn't been around for ages. He's not exactly a veteran of the game, but he's been around for long enough that I think if he's in the halves and he's not delivering enough, then keep him out. And it confuses me. Like, I don't know if their mindset was, oh, well, maybe he'll get us over the line this time, whereas the last 2 weeks we just fell short. But it was a substantial difference the last 2 weeks compared to the first month of footy. So I don't know. It's interesting.
I'm with you on a couple of different aspects. I mean, you don't have to be that good when the Titans are dropping 50% of the pill in that contest. And then Tanner Boyd, man, it does feel like that he has been around since I was a teenager, just quietly. It feels like forever that Tanner Boyd has been around legitimately. I'll just touch on quickly the Warriors team list. There's only just a handful, but so Kurt Capewell is not participating in the game. Jacob Laban has been selected to play in the second row. He's been more of a prop, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes on the edge. And then the interchanges where there's a little bit more happening. Dylan Walker returns in jersey 14. The debut of Zion Mayuu. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that correctly. I'm sorry, but it's Zion Mayuu. And then jersey 17 is Paul Roach. And if you recall the trial against the Tigers, Warriors versus Tigers, it was Mr. Zion that got sent off for that head-high shot. So he makes his debut. He's a big, angry, out-of-jail-looking son of a bitch. So it will be interesting to see how he goes. So just final tip and final score lines. What do you reckon? So in conclusion, V, what do you reckon?
Oh, God, my original thoughts have definitely changed now. Look, I think Warriors at home, always a tricky one. I'm probably going to go something like 26-12.
Okay, a little bit of respect on the Titans. Okay, a little bit of respect there.
A little bit.
Okay.
I still think they've still shown enough for me the last fortnight, but yeah, well, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, there's a bit of pepper about in the last fortnight for sure. Jack, what do you reckon?
Well, I'd like to say I'm 10 points behind Victoria in our tipping comp. So I'm having an absolutely terrible season. I'm behind my mum, who still has to text me asking me, you know, who Kurt Capewell plays for now. So I need to catch up. And based on mainly that logic, I'm going to go the Titans.
I picked the Titans last week, and you have made fun of me
You were wrong. But this week, I'm going to be right. I got the Titans fixture correct last week. So this week, I'm going to go Titans 16-12.
Okay.
V, I feel so sorry for you already if it comes true.
Me too.
Oh, you would be an absolute Nostradamus. That would be the tip of the year in any corner of the rugby league YouTube community, Jack, legitimately. Oh, man, especially coming from a non-Titans fan. But like the jealousy and like the anguish that you've got against V and your mum to try and come back in the tipping comp.
Yeah.
Oh, mate,
Like,
it's palpable.
What? It's law of averages says they're getting closer to their win every week.
Yeah,
so it may as well be this week.
Next week.
They're surely not going to go into the round and win.
Well, look, based on that logic, V, I reckon I'm going to back you in as well. I'm going to back with you. I'm going to go the Warriors to win this game 13 plus. I don't think it will be an extravagant 13 plus, sort of like a similar scoreline to what V said. I do, however, think the Warriors do touch on 30 points. I'll go something like a 32-10 sort of a scoreline. That's still a 22-point loss, but I think Titans will
That's
be.
good for
They'll be, they won't completely embarrass themselves, put it that way. Alrighty, now let's go into game number 2 on Anzac Day. And this game, I reckon, is the game of the round. I don't know about you guys, but I reckon this is the game of the round. The Dragons versus the Roosters at Allianz Stadium. The Dragons, a nice and juicy and meaty $2.72 outsiders, whereas the Roosters are $1.46. And going into the team list news now, let me just scroll down and see what the news may be. We've got Jack Bird, who is back, he's sitting on the reserves list. It looks like the 1-17 is unchanged for the Dragons. And then looking into the Sydney Roosters, Dominic Young and Sam Walker are back in for the Roosters. So that is a massive couple of inclusions for the Roosters. Starting with you, Jack, mate, how do you reckon this game will go? And what are your thoughts on the Roosters and Dragons so far?
Well, I think it largely depends on which version of the Dragons is going to show up. Like we've seen some weeks where they're absolutely fantastic. We saw it just last week alone, and then a few weeks before that against the Sea Eagles. But then there's the version that loses 38-0 to the Dolphins. I'm thinking that they turn up and they play well, at least. I'm still not sure who I think is going to win, but I think they will rise to the occasion. And then the Roosters, I really don't know what to make of them. They're boring. Like, who would have thought that, a team with an unlimited salary cap would be able to play such boring footy? But the Roosters managed to do it, and I thank them for it because it gives me just another reason to hate them. They're picking the wrong guy at fullback. They're picking the wrong guy at 5'8". Their hooker peaked 4 years ago when he was at a different club. Like, I'm not sure, but then they're still decent enough to get enough wins to be there and be asking questions. I don't know. I'm liking the Dragons. I'm gonna stick with that.
Okay. So, all right, let's go into V now. I'm going to save my opinion a little bit later. V, the Roosters now. Actually, I'll get your opinion on this. I have a very unpopular opinion that might get me booted into the sun. I think Joey Manu, besides the year 2022 and even 23, I'll give him his flowers. I think Joey Manu is sort of akin to being a werewolf where only the moon, a certain moon comes out and Joey Manu actually turns up and plays. I think Manu is a bit of a myth in that regards. When he's on, he's absolutely cracking. But I reckon that moon only ever comes out once every 6 or 7 weeks. And Jack touched on it just before. What are your thoughts on Joey Manu? And do you reckon that it should be swap time?
Call me Braden Trindle because this is cocaine to me. Seriously, I have been saying this. I have been saying this.
Oh no!
For like the last 2 years, genuinely, because he was flying in 2022. Not no one could touch him, but you know what I mean. He was doing like crazy stuff. He was definitely their best player, no doubt about it. 2023, he just had a nap. He just had a really long nap. Every now and again he woke up. Sometimes you got to go to the bathroom, so you kind of move around a little bit, and then he just fell back asleep. He did nothing because he's still Joey Manu, but in my opinion, I think he's genuinely one of the most overrated players in the NRL right now. He touches the ball and people are like, oh, make him fullback, and I'm like, no. Look, I also think Tedesco is quite overrated.
He's the better fullback still.
Jack and I have fought about Joey Manu. Like, genuinely had a fight because he said Para should sign Joey Manu to make him their fullback. And
Ooh.
I don't know what the plan is with Gutherson. Let's not rehash this because we fought about it. But yeah, he's going to rugby and everyone's like, oh, that's so sad for the game. And I'm like, is it? Is it really? Like, it's not exactly like when Roger Tavashashek left rugby, you know?
Completely
so
different.
I would not, yeah. I would not be surprised at all if the Dragons as an opposition, especially being Anzac Day, if this was the game where Tedesco ends up scoring a double and Manu throws a pass. And that's it.
Yep.
That's pretty good.
Okay. Well, V, if you ever come up for Magic Round, please remind me that I'm shouting you a beer because we're synergy right now, V. In the past couple of minutes, for sure. Yeah. Last weekend was extremely graphic at how sideways the rugby league is. The Sydney Roosters. You give it to Manu, and then he runs across sideways, and there's no one to Manu's defense a little bit. There's no one running to try and find a hole in the defensive line. And then Tedesco had, look, with all due respect, in a way, but unfortunately Tedesco had one of his all-time Barry Crockers last weekend. So the Roosters, I believe, they're the team coming into this game. While they may be favourites, they're the team not coming into this game with the better form. It's certainly the Dragons. And as Jack touched on before, we don't know what kind of Dragons is going to get up. Well, let me just go into a little bit of the history, though. It's actually the Dragons who lead the overall head-to-head record in these Anzac Day games, only by a couple of victories. This will be the 23rd edition of the Anzac Day game, and it is the Dragons who have one or two more victories over the Sydney Roosters on this occasion. The away team in this matchup has not won since the year 2015.
Oh, wow.
It's a Dragons home game. It's a Dragons home game, and the away team has not won this edition, or this game, I should say, since the year 2015. I've got to go with Jack now on this occasion. I think the Dragons are showing a lot more tenacity defensively. Zach Lomax, I think, is deserving at this point in time to be on top of the Dally M leaderboard. I think that's a true reflection of how this season has gone. We'll get to Jack's man in just a couple of minutes as well, i.e. Mr. Edwards. But I do think Lomax is definitely deserving to be on top. I'll give me tip now. I am going to go the Dragons. They came incredibly close last season against the Roosters. Sort of unlucky to lose that contest, and the Dragons were a worse side. Now they're coached by Shane Flanagan. There's a rocket up them, and they're playing really spirited. I think they'll have enough. Dominic Young, he wasn't noted for being a great defender before he left Newcastle, and maybe he's being found out. And Sam Walker and Luke Keary, we've heard a lot about it over the past, 18 months or so, probably more than that, that when Keary and Walker combine, it's still clunky. And they were clunky, the Roosters were, last week without Walker. So I think I'm going to back in the Dragons here. And also the value on them, $2.72 about them. And they're the more formed team coming into this game. I'm going the Dragons to win this game. Jack?
Yeah, I'm going to go Dragons as well. I reckon it's going to be a bit of a beatdown, to be honest. I've decided. I've convinced myself across this conversation. I had it like here, but as we've gone on, it's gone like this. And I think it's going to be one of those games where the Roosters are completely ineffective with the ball. And as the game goes on and on and on and on, you're going to see the Hunt, Sloan, and Lomax show once again. And I think the Dragons are going to win 30-4. And then you're not going to hear a single word about Trent Robinson in the media during the week because he's protected.
Yeah. V, what do you reckon? Who are you tipping, and what do you think the score will be?
Firstly, I just think it's really funny that we went from I don't know who to tip to 30-4.
You guys convinced me.
I'm tipping the Roosters.
That's how bad your analysis was. No.
Okay.
You just trashed on Joey Manu for 10 minutes.
That wasn't okay. It was not 10 minutes. Anyway. No, I'm going Roosters, but I've got it as a tight match. I've got I don't know, I'm feeling like the form that we were seeing from Tedesco at the beginning of the season, I don't see that just being gone completely. I do think, something obviously changed in him from last year to this year. And, I don't know fully what happened last weekend, but I think he'll end up having a bit of a solid performance. I've got him down for a try at least. But I feel like we're going to get a little bit of a Ben Hunt stinker, because if there's anyone I think more overrated than Joey Manu, is Ben Hunt.
Holy.
I don't know. I actually don't think he's okay. I will say this: I didn't see the game last weekend, so if Hunt had a blinder, let's pretend I'm not speaking right now.
He was very good.
Okay, apparently he was really good, so never mind. No, I don't know. I think he's a little bit consistent in his older age, and so I think they're going to struggle to crack them a little bit. And so I've got like 16-12 to the Roosters.
Okay. I'm going to go a scoreline of 24 points to 16. I do think, I think it's going to be, let me go into the team list just quickly. Let me just verify. So Lomax does remain in the center. He's not going to be shifted out to the wing again. And if I am correct, he's going to be lining up on Joseph Suaalii on that left edge defensively for the Sydney Roosters. And look, yeah, I don't want to sink the boot in too much on the Roosters as well, but Suaalii, for his final season at the Roosters, he has not fired a shot, in my opinion. Maybe he shot one, but Suaalii has been incredibly quiet in 2024. And I am weary about this game. I do give the Roosters a sniff. It just feels like one of them games where it's like the Dragons, it does make sense. The value's there for them to tip him, but it just might be like the Roosters just get that dub to get themselves out of hot water a little bit. But no, I'm going to stick with me tip. I'm going to go the Dragons 24-16. And we move on. So V's going to go the Roosters. Jack and we're going to go the Dragons. And let's go on to the third and final game on Anzac Day. Melbourne versus the South Sydney Rabbitohs for the first time ever on Anzac Day. And the odds are $1.21 to the Storm. The Rabbits are $4.45 outsiders. Some of the changes here for the teams for the South Sydney Rabbitohs to start off with, Jacob Gagai, I should say, is out there on one wing. He comes back in. Isaiah Tass and Tane Milne, also one edge. Shaq Mitchell starts. Damien Cook is back in. Jai Arrow is in for South Sydney as well. And just looking over to the Melbourne Storm, it doesn't look like that there's any changes after they pipped the Sydney Roosters last weekend. Victoria, starting with you, I want your opinion as well on the Melbourne Storm. I'll start off by saying that I think the Melbourne Storm, even though they did defeat Penrith in round one, Penrith, it was the round one shakes, the teams are still a little bit rusty, but I think that when the time comes, when they come up against a full strength Brisbane Broncos outfit, I've got a lazy eye on the Storm versus Cronulla game in about 3 weeks' time as well. I think the Storm being in second spot, whilst they've worked hard to get there, I don't think that they're a team that is a second spot team. Does that make sense? I don't think that they are team number 2 at this stage of the game, V.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's a bit of a tricky one, because I think realistically any other team who had played exact same, games and won the exact same way that the Melbourne Storm have would say that with no hesitancy. But I hesitate because it's the Storm. And I don't know. I've never been able to write them off in any way. And I think it's just, they can win. They just know how to find a win. And we've actually been speaking about this a bit recently. With that stat came out that was like, if if games were counted from the 70th minute rather than the 80th, the Storm would be like 7th place or something like that.
15th.
Oh, 15th place. Jesus. Yeah. So they had basically won most of their games in those final 10 minutes. And, you know, that's obviously credit to them for that. But it's just one of those things you can never, like, I guess, like, write off a team who just know how to win a game. And that's what Penrith have developed as well. Like, you know, no one else wins that grand final last year, but Penrith know how to win a game. And Storm have developed that kind of mentality as well over the years. And so while there are still bits of it where I go, they're not firing the way that I think we would typically see from the Storm, I think they're just so clinical that for me, I kind of go, I can't imagine anyone else replacing them in that kind of top 4 aspect, because they just have that mentality and they know how to win. And, you know, for them, they look at a game and it's not, we need to play at our best for 80 minutes. It's, we need to just win it by 80. And I don't know, I wish my team knew how to do that. That's all I know.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I think that was really well put too, by the way, Victoria. I think the two players that deserve the most credit, in my opinion, if Xavier Coates doesn't play the past 3 games or 4 games, they don't win any of those games. 100%. And I think Ryan Papenhuyzen, Jack, I think Ryan Papenhuyzen, what do you reckon? Do you think he's changed his game a little bit? I think he's just a lot more hard-nosed this season. I think he's been kind of underrated. He's not as electrifying as he was in 2020 and 2021 and all that jazz. I think he's sort of just taken I don't know how to explain it, but I think he's just taken a step back and he's doing a lot more of the tough and grunt sort of work at fullback, but still having that speed to complement his work ethic.
Yeah, I think it's almost become like popular to say that Pappenhausen's not that good, which I find really strange because I still think he's excellent. He's not as explosive as he once was, but you can't be with what's happened to him with all these unfortunate injuries that he's been getting for the past couple of years. But what he's turned himself into is a worker, like in the same mold that you see with, you know, Edwards and Gutherson and the like. And what that does is that makes you a pivotal cog in your team. The moment that you're not there, it all starts to fall apart, really. And it's one of the most underrated things that I think you can see in a fullback, but it's one of the things that we love to point out that fullbacks don't have. But yeah, I think he's been very good. I also think he's developed his playmaking and ball playing skills quite a lot. And we saw similar with Slater throughout his career, probably because of the way the fullback role developed. But I think, what's really impressive is just the way he's been able to sort of reinvent himself as a player. And then you do get those random moments in a game where you see the old Pappenhausen, where maybe he's just got a few of those runs in him. And you're like, God, how do you stop him? So I think he's been amazing this season.
Yeah, I think he has been very, very solid. But I think, look, there is a debate to be had, but Jerome Hughes is arguably the best halfback in the competition at the moment. I know that I said Xavier Coates and Ryan Papenhuyzen, if they don't play, they don't win. Well, Jerome Hughes is also that other cog to the machine as well, because he's been exemplary in the opening 6 or 7 weeks of the season. Going now into the South Sydney Rabbitohs, I said at the start of the year that I think the team that will get the wooden spoon will be someone that we're not anticipating, but I fell back on, look, I still don't think the Tigers are going to be that well, so I did choose the Tigers to be my wooden spooners, but I still maintained the opinion that I think a team actually might fall from grace really, really hard and surprise us all at how bad they're going. South Sydney is that team. They are the most disappointing team in the competition for 2024 at this stage. Their finals dream is not over, technically, obviously, we're not even halfway through the season. I don't even think I think we're only just a quarter of the way through the season. If there is one team that can do that Hollywood run and just pip 8th spot from this point, it is the South Sydney Rabbitohs, but they've got so much work to do and they got to get their freaking finger out so quickly. But Latrell Mitchell, he's not playing in this game. We've got Cody Walker and Dean Hawkins as the halves combination. Cody Walker v Victoria. Cody Walker really needs to discover his 2021-2022 form, because the second half of last year and the start of this season, you could say that his form resembles the entirety of South Sydney's form over the past 12 months or so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing I've noticed with Cody Walker is, firstly, I've always thought he had an attitude issue. I thought it was pretty clear that he can't handle losing. I don't know, obviously, what went on during preseason. I don't know what is going on with the coach. I don't know, the cliche, he's lost the locker room, all that sort of crap. I don't know if how true that is, but Cody Walker and the likes, go Barrow, seem to be playing as if it's already round 17 and they're fighting to make the 8. It looked like that from day dot. That almost like not a loser mentality, but if the shoe fits, wear it.
Yeah.
And so, look, I am hesitant to talk too much shit because look at the jersey I'm wearing right now. So I am very hesitant. I am very aware of the fact that you're right. Souths are the type that could very well grab some form and run away with it. But I think a lot has to happen for that to happen, because if you've got your leaders of the team not leading, it's pretty hard to find form and find the wins where you need to. Because in my opinion, look, I know obviously every team, it's like you've got one captain, but you've got your leadership group and everything like that. But in my opinion, I look at like any senior player as a leader of the team, and their leaders not even just aren't playing well. I just think they've got bad attitudes. And the only one really that I kind of feel bad for is Cameron Murray.
Yeah, 1,000%, Victoria, 1,000%. And looking at Jack Whiten as well, like he's come in from the Canberra Raiders and he's sort of been how do I say it? He's sort of been unfazed and untouched by the drama that happened in the second half of last season, and he has come in and he's worked really hard. I'll give him his due credit. I know that he was in that game against the Roosters where the Bunnies did get flogged, but I think Jack Whiten has been a decent light for them so far in 2024. But Jack, now I'm going to ask you a question about South Sydney. I need you just to keep maintained, because I know that you really like the Bunnies. All right, I know that you really like them in respect. Damien Cook was dropped 2 weeks ago by the coach, and it made nada difference. And Cook has been reinstated in the hooker position, starting in jersey 9 with Momozulos in jersey 14 for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Mate, to me, this is a bit conspiracy theorist and tinfoil hat sort of stuff, but to me, Coach Demetrio to drop Cook or hook Cook completely in the possible face of getting punted the hour after full-time siren goes, I think that was a bit of a I think that was sort of like a final FU to Damien Cook. And then they tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Hey, Jason Demetrio, we're still going to keep you on as coach." And now Jason Demetrio's gone, "Hey, Cook, do you want to come back in the next game that we've got after our bye?" I don't like that situation at all that had Cook dropped out of the side. I don't think it warranted. But what did you make of Damien Cook's form before he got dropped? And did you agree with it or not?
Yeah, it was a weird one where I don't think he was playing well, but I thought he was far from their biggest issue in the squad. But maybe Demetrio saw it as like I don't know, a message to send to the squad that no one is irreplaceable. But then, what message do you send when you bring him straight back in at your next game?
Straight back.
Like, I don't really understand what questions were asked for the answer to be, let's drop Cook, then bring him back the week after the bye. I really struggle to see the logic there, and I think it's a coach desperately clinging and grasping for answers. And I don't really get how, playing like treating these hookers like a yo-yo is gonna answer it, especially when they have 12 other players out there on the field next to them, none of who are playing well. So why is it all focused on this one position?
Yep, agreed. And look, I just want to bring this up. I hope you guys can sort of read that. If not, I'll try and zoom in if I can. But just on paper, man, you've got Jai Gray at fullback versus Ryan Papenhuyzen. That's something that stands out. And you've got the halves combinate. Like the spine of the Storm is elite in comparison to South Sydney. But the matches within, I think it's relatively even. The forward pack on paper does look to match the Melbourne Storm, but in reality, they've folded like a wet napkin, like wet tissue paper this season. Unfortunately, have the South Sydney Rabbitohs. So if the Rabbits, if they can actually arc up and fight fire with fire against the forward pack against Melbourne, they're a shot, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to tip the Melbourne Storm to win this game 13+. They've been winning by 2, 4, 8 points to start the season. I will go 13+ Melbourne Storm. I'm going to go a scoreline, something akin to a 36 points to 36 to 12 scoreline. Sorry about that. Victoria, what is your tip and scoreline, mate?
Yeah, I'm kind of breathing the same air as you there. I feel like we'll probably see Souths come out firing. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see them score an early try, maybe like first 7 minutes, something like that, just to be really accurate. And then as soon as, you cop what they think is an unfair penalty, or as soon as you get a dropped ball 10 out, I just wouldn't be surprised if they crumble and fold. And that's where Melbourne just go on their merry way. So I don't think it's going to be quite a blowout, because I do think Souths will maybe score a couple of early tries, or, maybe 2 tries and then score, 1 towards the end, something like that. So I'm going to go something like 28-14 to the Storm.
Okay, Jack?
Well, put it this way. There was a stretch where the South Sydney Rabbitohs in the early 2010s made 3 preliminary finals and 1 a comp in a row, right? Then the late 2010s to early 2020s, 5 preliminary finals in a row and a losing grand final, which they only just lost. In that entire time, they never won in Melbourne. They're not doing it now that they're shit. I'm going Melbourne Storm 34 to 10.
Yep. Yeah. Wow. Holy crap. Coming down with a hammer there was Jack. And also as well, just quickly, with what I've found, that teams coming off the bye this year have started really flat. That does include the who came off the bye last week, and I think it was the Storm or whoever. But I think teams that have come off the bye this year, they have started flat.
We can see the
yes, that's right. It was Penrith, wasn't it? It was Penrith. Yes. Alrighty, let's go into the next game. And Victoria, the red carpet is out for you. We got Manly versus Parramatta at 4 Pines Park this Friday night. It is the only Friday night game. Manly are $1.33. Parramatta are $3.34. And I don't mean to sound like a smartass there. I'm sorry, Victoria, because your boys did get the W. Your boys did get the W against Manly only a month or so ago in one of the games of the season so far, might I add. Victoria, the floor is yours. Unleash.
Look, it's tough. It's pretty bleak. Life as a para fan right now. This week at work, the way I have coped is by telling everyone I no longer follow rugby league, because then they can't really give it to me when Manly thrash them, because I really don't expect it to be a very fun game for myself. And overall, I think life sucks for other rugby league fans when Manly win as well.
Yeah,
you know, Manly fans are just insufferable, you know, especially when they win. I mean, like, I just think, they just really, really think they are the NRL when they're winning. And, you know, if there's one thing that Manly loves more than their team, it's hating para. And it's in Manly, it's at Brookie. It's going to be their third sellout of the year, and they're acting like they deserve a medal for that. But, you know, fair enough. You fit 10 people in your stadium, but okay, congrats, you sold it out. So I know they're going to be firing. And I think I'm glad Brad Arthur is making changes, but some of the changes I don't fully understand. And I also don't understand why his mentality is to change multiple different positions at once instead of, you know, make one solid change like a halfback. That's a pretty substantial change. Instead, he's gone, you know, winger, forward, all of you all change, except for the hooker. That's the one that really needs to change, but we're not going to change you. So it's still, I don't know. It's just a bit odd. And some of these changes, like bringing in Ethan Sanders finally, just off a little bit too little, too late.
All right, so I've just brought up the team list there. I hope you guys can read that. Let me know if you can't. But are you able to tell us more about young Ethan Sanders? I do recall the trial that he had against the Canberra Raiders, and he did show some glimpses, but obviously very young, still very, very raw. But he's got some glimpses, and I think I was there. I think he did play in the Under-19 State of Origin game last season as well.
Yeah.
And he had a pretty solid account of himself. Also, it's actually really good to see Brendan Hands back into the side. Like, I don't know why it took that long, why it's taken so long to have Brendan Hands come back into the side just quietly, Victoria.
I mean, look, in theory and on paper, that looks really great. Whether Brad actually plays him is a completely other thing, because he was also on the bench against Penrith and he played 3 minutes. He was also on the bench against the Tigers and he played 8 minutes. So, you know, it's how well he actually uses him, which is, I genuinely don't understand what has happened with this year, because I think a lot of people have been quite critical of Brad and his rotation of the bench. And I've had my moments, but usually I can see a little justification and I kind of go, I sort of get how that, you know, what his logic was there. But this year I've just really struggled with it. I think last year we saw Brendan Hands come on for his debut, and this person is saying that Para usually go to a different level when it comes against Penrith and Manly. I mean, Manly beat them 58-0 a couple years ago. So
that was 6 years ago, all right?
Still, that was a thing. That was still a thing. They also thrashed Para last year.
Yeah.
They definitely did go to a different level, didn't they?
Yeah. Look, sorry, I was going on a tangent and then I got distracted because I saw that comment. But I think on paper that team list isn't so bad, but it's the execution of it is my concern, and what we actually get from those players that right now we've got a little bit of question marks around them, because unfortunately one of our star players this year and last year was Bryce Cartwright, and apparently he's picked up an injury. I don't know if it's a continuation of that rib injury or if it's a new injury on its own, but He's out now, and they've brought in Ryan Madison to replace him, who has done nothing. He has done nothing for Para this year. In fact, he's done nothing since he sat on the bench for 3 weeks because he didn't want to pay $4,000. I think, in my opinion, and I love him, but
Yeah.
I think his time is nearing an end with Para, and he's playing like it. He's playing like he doesn't care anymore, and that's a big, big issue that I have, is that there's a lot of players out there who seem to be pulling on the jersey for the sake of getting a paycheck rather than actually pride in the emblem that they're playing for.
Yo, alrighty. Jack, mate. What's your summarization of Parramatta, mate? What have you made of their season?
Well, they're not good. I'll tell you that. They're really, really weird because on paper they do look pretty good, and they have for years now. We got a year where it worked to a large extent because players all had the right attitudes. Then you saw last year someone like Bryce Cartwright had the right attitude, while it seemed to dip with a lot of his teammates. Then this year, I don't know. We've seen it on occasions. They weren't bad against Penrith, but the coaching was poor when it came to managing the injury they got during the game.
Agreed.
They were still decent against the Tigers, and it was a close game. The Tigers, everyone knows, are a level above where they have been in recent years. They beat Manly after a shocking start. They beat the Bulldogs, who another team that we can see have lifted a level. They're clearly still a good team. It's about whether they bother to turn up. You know, games against the Dolphins and the Raiders, teams that these players seemingly don't care about, they haven't bothered. And it's similar to the Dragons, but to a more, I'd say, depressing extent, which Para is going to turn up. I can see them playing well this week just because of the occasion. I also think Manly are ready to be beaten. But they're also a good team, so it's hard to know sort of with them as well. But I'm really, really questioning which actual Para is going to turn up, because you can say one thing and it'll make sense, but then you can say the complete opposite and it'll make sense as well. The team selections are quite interesting. I agree, something had to be done, and I normally would agree with you about the sort of mass changes, about ruining cohesion. But then I also wonder where the cohesion is already in the team. If there's none there, you may as well sort of chuck it out. Someone like Ryan Madison, I completely agree. His head seems to be gone. He doesn't really care. The forward pack, the middle forwards, have done an okay job, but haven't stood up really. The hooker, when's the last time he played a good pass? Probably when he was back over in England. But then someone like Brendan Hance, I think that is a very good addition as long as he's used properly. Ethan Sanders is an exciting player. I wonder how ready he is, because we did see glimpses in the trial, but he didn't exactly control the fixture. But whether he's ready or not, they couldn't still keep playing that combination of either Dylan Brown and Blaise Talungi or Dylan Brown and Dejan Arce. They had to make a change. They have made a change. I'm very, very curious to see whether it works out, and it's almost like a coin flip about whether it does really.
Yeah. I mean, the Parramatta team changed halfway through the game last weekend. They were up in front. I think they were Parramatta, and then that second half occurred. To be brutally honest, and much love and respect to you, Victoria, I didn't just bring you on here just to give you a slap sort of a thing, but just the way that the cards have all come together. I'm kind of fearful. I'm kind of fearful for Parramatta this weekend. We saw that the Manly and Warriors both came out extremely flat after their Golden Point extra game. Golden Point extra time game. And then Parramatta, they just got done in up in Darwin. I maybe a little bit tinfoil here, but the energy sapped from them might be a hell of a lot. Manly now, they are back at home after, I think, 2 games on the road now, 1 in Gold Coast and 1 in New Zealand. They're back at home. And look, I guess we haven't spoken much about Manly at this point in time, but I think they're kind of simple. Same with the team that I'm wearing at the moment, is that their defense just simply needs to level up. It needs to improve. And with what they produced against Parramatta inside the first 10, 15 minutes back in round number 4, I think there is a massive danger of that happening against Parramatta. But based on the evidence of what we've seen over the past couple of weeks from the Eels, well, not the past couple of weeks, just last weekend, about 2 weeks ago, you guys done us in. But yeah, I'm a bit fearful of what Manly might produce against Parramatta, and I'm going to tip Manly to win this game 13 plus. I will say something like a 38 points to 10 sort of a scoreline, unfortunately. But the team on paper can drastically change that to a 1-12 or even a victory. I think the Parramatta Eels don't have a bad team list at all, like you both have said. It's just that this forward pack needs to give young Ethan Sanders a hell of a lot of space to utilize a decent kicking game. I think his kicking game could be rather useful this weekend. He is more a bit of a half than an RC or a Blaze Talangi in that sense. He's got a more of a pure halves kicking game in that sense. So the forward pack really need to protect Ethan Sanders. And if they can fire up, we can see that Manly's defense does crack a hell of a lot under pressure, whether it be in the rain or the sunshine. But at this stage, unfortunately, I'm going to say that Manly win this game approximately 38 points to 10. I do think they win big time. I'm so sorry, Victoria. What do you think is going to happen this Friday night?
Oh, look, I think you've been generous. I think I genuinely, I feel very, very deflated. And last week, I made the foolish mistake of believing in them, and they let me down terribly. So never again. I think what you've said is correct. And at the beginning of this little review, you asked my thoughts on Ethan Sanders, and I went on a different tangent. So apologies for that. But I do think the big difference will be in those halves, and not so much putting the pressure on Ethan Sanders, because I'm very aware of the fact that this is a 19-year-old on debut in a team whose coach's head is on the chopping block, in my opinion. And realistically, like, this season is on the not season isn't on the line, but I don't see them turning this around anytime soon, because Moses isn't back still for a few weeks. And by the time he is back, who knows, crazy things could happen. He could very well then go straight into Origin camp, and then that's another week without him. And they need to learn how to play without him. And I'm hoping that what we see isn't Ethan Sanders at halfback winning it for them, but now the relief that Dylan Brown gets to play 5/8 again, because he is through and through a 5/8. He is not a halfback, isn't that? And I think that has been such a terrible coaching decision. The solution was going to be a player who, in my opinion, struggles to play outside of his procedure. I don't know how to say it, but his role. Yeah, his role. What he does is he plays off the halfback, and sometimes he does that very, very well, and that gives him that freedom to kind of do special things. He's that, like, I hate this phrase so much now, but that X factor that you get, rather than the clinical, level-headed, mature player that Mitch Moses is. You get that fun spark from Brown. And when Brown is meant to be the level-headed one, well, you've seen an interview with him. You've seen what he's not level-headed. He's far from it. And he is who he is. And that, like, you see that on the field. He's sporadic. He goes into his own shell, and he just shuts down, basically. And on the weekend, we needed him to step up. And He didn't. Even when Dijon Arcee went off, that's where you kind of go, damn, this is on me. My fullback is on one leg, looks like a pensioner right now. Maybe I should step up. And instead he went, I don't want to. I don't like the spotlight, you know? And so I'm hoping you've got a kid on debut. He's got nothing to lose. He's got one club wanting him. You've got another club going, okay, well, we'll finally give you your debut, even though you're a teenager still. You know, he's only just started to like beer probably. And now he's like, I've got the chance to, you know, actually make a difference here. And I think he'll just go out there and have fun. Whereas I'm hoping that will then allow Brown to do what he does. And
Yes.
that's all easy to say. Whether they actually do that is a completely different thing. But you're right. I think the big difference, the only thing I say even more important than that is Campbell Gillard, Hopgood. Hopgood I have no issue with. Hopgood is, you know, my hero right now. You know, he is the shining light in this team right now. I can never fault him. We got absolutely thrashed and he still scored something like 60 points on Supercoach because he's just a freak. He just will not give up. And I really, really love that in him. And I hope to God this doesn't kill him and ruin him. I hope that he just keeps doing that forever. I hope he's just a freak forever. But I've been really disappointed in Junior Paulo and even Campbell Gillard to an extent. And so I'm hoping, you know, Brad ends up speaking to them saying, you got to pull your heads out. You got to, you know, give this kid the space to do what he can do, which will then help Brown do what he can do.
Final score?
Yeah, that wasn't. I still think Manly will thrash them, but 40-6.
Jesus.
Jack, what do you reckon, mate?
Look, I'm behind in tipping. I need to catch up, right? It's an occasion. Para stand up in an occasion that's you know, a regular season occasion. And you know what? You're right. Ethan Sanders is going to come in. He's going to have the 6 on his back, but he'll be playing halfback. It's going to free up Dylan Brown to just do his thing. All right, but there's going to be slightly less pressure on Ethan because the 6 is on his back. The media won't think he's a halfback. Joey Lussick will get injured in warm-up and Brendan Hands will play.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
And then, magically, Manly become the Manly that we all want Manly to be. They lose. Parramatta win 28-26.
Again, look, I'm speechless. I'm actually speechless. But all right, then, no worries, man. Again, you still need to catch up to your mum in Victoria. Desperate, he says. Absolutely desperate, he says. All right, then. All right. So 2 Manly, 1 Parramatta. Let's go into Saturday night footy now. And this game is emanating from Campbelltown Sports Stadium, and this could be absolutely anything. The Tigers, $4.45. The Broncos, $1.20. And just before we get into some of the team lists, I've got to talk about a little bit of the history that the Brisbane Broncos have at this venue. I'm just going to change this up to here. So the Brisbane Broncos, this is their first trip to Campbelltown since 2018. They won on that occasion. The Brisbane Broncos have not lost at the venue since the year 1992, and they're on about a 10-game winning streak, including a draw in there as well. So this is this venue holds no fears for the Brisbane Broncos, having not lost at the venue since 1992. However, since the Broncos won that game since 2018, in 2018, I should say, the Tigers have gone on to win 4 of the next 5 games against the Brisbane Broncos. And admittedly, that was a game that, well, those were games that had the Broncos wooden spoon teams in the early 2020s. Just going to go back into the team list now and just to verify what they might look like. So it looks like that a young debutant for the Tigers will be appearing on the wing. His name is Solomon Alay Marlow. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Samuel Afainu starts in the second row with John Bateman reverting to the lock position. And then going into the Brisbane Broncos will back the truck up a little bit here. Adam Reynolds comes back in. We've got Dean Mariner that's back in. Brendan Piakura and Payne Haas also returns for the Brisbane Broncos. I mean, Tigers, I know you've won 4 of the last 5 against the Brisbane Broncos, boys, but Brisbane haven't lost at Campbelltown since 92 in 10 or 12 attempts, and they're backing the truck up big time this weekend. You're going to need all the spirit that you need to get over the top of the Broncos. I'm so sorry, Tigers fans. I'm going to give my tip away straight up. I think Brisbane Broncos win this game by about 40 points to 10. Jack, starting with you, mate.
Well, I'd like to add on to your additional fun facts about the Broncos at Campbelltown. That win in 2018, they won 10-8 or something like that, and Jermaine Asako scored all of their points.
Oh, yeah.
And that draw, I could be wrong, I believe that was the West Tigers' first ever game, round 1, 2000. So they started off very Tigers-like, just being so close to greatness, almost the 9th place of scorelines, if you will. Yeah, I didn't realise just how many players were back for the Broncos. Tigers, It's been fun. You've been, quite enjoyable to watch as a neutral the last few weeks, as you've done a very admirable job. Yeah, jeez.
It's a big out, though.
What's a big out?
Ezra Mam.
Ezra Mam is a big out, but I don't think Jock Man's a bad player. I think Payne Haas and Adam Reynolds and Piakura and Dean Mariner are bigger ins than Ezra Mam as an out. Jeez. Yeah, I think Broncos will win this quite well. I'm going to say, what did they win by last week? It was it got to 38-0 at one point, didn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
I'm going to say 34-16. I think the Tigers are going to play with more pride in their performance than the Raiders did last week. Apologies, we have 2 cats on the desk right now. See the way that they are walking around this desk like they own the place? That is what the Broncos are going to do to Campbelltown Stadium.
Yep. All right. Look, Galaxy Footy, when I said absolutely anything, I mean we could see a scoreline of 70. I know Man's not playing, but Jock Madden, he's proved to be pretty decent, and you lose Cobbo, but you get Mariner back in, and you just have a bit of a swap and change on the edges there. Absolutely. When I say absolutely anything, I mean the Broncos could legitimately drill him into the core of the earth, just quietly. Victoria, how do you see this game panning out?
I don't know. I'm trying my absolute hardest to find something to try to pay a little bit of respect to the Tigers. But
you know what? They do deserve that. You know what? They do deserve a bit of respect. They have fought very hard. Yeah.
I think, we could sit here and talk about what they have done this year. But there's also a lot what they haven't done. I drove 3 bloody hours to watch the Tigers shoot themselves in the foot, set after set after set on Saturday. I'm not going to say they should have beaten Penrith. I'm not insane. But, they should have at least challenged them more than they did. I think they had so many opportunities, and they were getting around.
Taruva?
No, the other one. Inside him. Center.
Oh, Tungo.
No, the other one.
No, they're getting around Tungo.
No, because Bateman was the one who got around.
Oh, Alamotti.
Alamotti, that's it. It was Alamotti.
Oh, it was
he
those
kept getting
passes
around.
to Staines.
And he just couldn't throw the fucking ball. Sorry. It was driving me crazy. We had not a great view because we got there late, but this one play towards the end where they were still only down by 6, and Bateman got around Alamotti, had Staines between the post. Okay, maybe not between the posts, but scores. I say he scores, and he just that was his version of passing the ball. And
Yeah.
I was so mad. It was so annoying because, you know, I don't really like the Tigers, but I don't like Penrith more. So I would have liked to have seen the Tigers win, or at least I just wanted to see them actually properly challenge them. And, you know, Penrith are Penrith. They were clinical and they ran away with it. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see it like that, but I also wouldn't be surprised if the Broncos scored in 17 seconds.
Yeah,
But that's the thing too. There is that while Penrith are clinical, they're not a team, as Jack knows. Like, they're not a team that puts 50 points on you.
Oh, no,
This Brisbane Broncos side, they'll put 50 points on you this weekend if they're not careful. And again, I don't think it'll get that bad, but I think this game will be over inside 15 minutes, just quietly. Go ahead, Jack. Sorry.
Yeah, no, the Broncos, they're that kind of team that they run out and they punch you in the face from kickoff, and that's I think that's what we're going to see. Yeah, has there been a 50 this year?
No.
Okay.
Oh, you caught me off guard. Mate, surely there's been one. No,
there hasn't.
All right, well there we go. Sports bet.
There's been a few 40s.
Broncos 50 points, race to 50 points. Let's put a fiver on it. Yeah.
Well, that's it. Sure. That's interesting. No 50s yet. Yo. Alrighty. Well, look, it sounds like we're all going Brisbane Broncos 13+. Let's go on to the next game. Saturday night's main event, Cowboys versus the Panthers on Sportsbet. Give me one moment. I'm going to bring up Sportsbet again on Sportsbet. It is the Cowboys who are outsiders at $3.66. Penrith Panthers are $1.29. This will be the 47th match between the Cowboys and Panthers, and it is Penrith who have a 25-21 scoreline. And going into the team list news now, just scrolling down. Now, Jack, can you read it when I share the screen, mate?
Yeah, of course.
Yep. Alrighty. So, mate, I'll get you to read through your Penrith Panthers, mate.
Right. So at fullback, we have Dylan Edwards. The wingers are Sunia Taruva and Brian To'o. The centers, we have Isaac Tungo and Taylor May makes his return to the team. The halves, we have Jerome Luai at 5'8", and returning in the number 7, the Prince, the man, the best player in the world, Nathan Cleary, the co-captain. The props, the front rowers, we've got big Mozzie Leota and the man who'll be leaving us at the end of the season, James Fisher-Harris. The hooker is the great man, Mitch Kenny. The back row is full strength for what feels like the third time this year. Scott Sorensen and Liam Martin, with Isaiah Yeo locking the scrum. The bench, we have the versatile Dane Laurie, who will get his 6 seconds of footy. We have Lindsay Smith and Liam Henry, who are improving every week. Luke Garner, who I haven't given up on. I'm getting there. And the reserves, the Payne Haas of New South Wales Cup, Matt Eisenhuth.
Oh, dear.
Paul Alamotti, Brad Schneider, Mav Gaia, and Tyrone Peachy.
You would.
All right. Yo, now, Victoria, before I get Jack to unload, I want to ask you a similar question that I asked Jack just a minute ago. Do you think we've seen the best of Penrith this season?
No, definitely not. I've actually been critical of Penrith because I have gone through the absolute torture of watching pretty much every game of theirs the last 3 years. And I'm also watching it from, well, yes, a hateful eye. Nothing helps you pick up on errors quite like a hateful eye. And so as much as I do hate them, I can't, ignore the fact that they are so frustratingly good. But it does actually make it more obvious when they're not quite performing at a level that we know they can perform at. And that doesn't mean we haven't seen sparks of it. I think we've absolutely seen sparks of it. I just don't think we have seen them deliver a performance where at the end of it, you've gone, yeah, damn, that was Penrith. And I don't mean by putting on 50 points, because we know, as we just said, that's not what Penrith does. But they can still win a game 20-12 and have destroyed their opponent. Like they just have that ability to do it, where realistically, the whole time you just knew that that other team wasn't actually going to win, because we've seen them come from behind. We've seen them run away with it and then basically just cruise in second gear, because they've got this defensive brick wall that for years has felt impossible to break. Well, we've seen that maybe there's a couple bricks missing in that brick wall this year. And all I can hold on to is the fact that we watched Para score 3 tries in the middle in round 2. And that's not very, typical of Penrith over the last few years. And that doesn't mean they can't win a premiership like that, but it just means maybe it's going to be a tiny little bit more difficult for them this year, because we are seeing those other teams who are, flying or going off, form from last year, like the Broncos. They seem to have picked up back where they left off and everything like that. So, I think we might see that Penrith have a slightly more difficult year. And I don't mean, in the sense that they come second. They could very well still come first, but that, they give their fans a little bit of a heart attack every now and again.
Yep. Victoria, would you say that Penrith look a little bit tired after 3 straight premierships and 4 straight grand finals?
I wouldn't say they look tired. I think they don't look as dominant as they've looked straight away, because in my opinion, I think their depth has finally started to reach that point where they've had to pull from it more than they've had to in the past. Or you've got different levels of depth. They were pulling from the top, and now they've started to pull from that second level of it. We've already seen a debut this year, where he didn't really look like debuting at all last year. He wasn't even really a chance to debut at the beginning, Jack was telling me, and it was only due to an injury in New South Wales Cup that he then... Yeah.
Preston Ricky hip dropped someone.
Oh, sorry, suspension, suspension, not injury, sorry. And so, in my opinion, what once was a terrifying bench isn't a bad bench now, but Dane Laurie's not really scaring anyone. And while they've still been solid, neither are Lindsay Smith or Liam Henry, in my opinion.
Thank you, Victoria. And Jack, do you reiterate what Victoria just said? And do you think Penrith may be looking a little bit tired, or just exactly what Victoria said there, that maybe that they have had to pull into the reserves a little bit too much, and it's just sort of to balance itself out a little bit with the youth and the experience, maybe come back to bite them just a small fraction?
I think certainly so. In terms of, I think we've seen the team this year. You look at how they performed in previous years when Nathan Cleary was out, because Nathan Cleary is due an injury every year. You look at how they were with Sean O'Sullivan and then with Jack Cogger. They definitely perform better than they have with Brad Schneider. And I don't mean that as a criticism of Brad Schneider. I mean that the team, on paper, isn't as good as it has been. We've had previous years where we've been able to bring, Scott Sorensen off the bench. That's how good it's been. Or the year before that, bringing Liam Martin off the bench. And that's just not an option this year. Liam Martin's a starter when he's fit. Scott Sorensen's a starter when he's fit. And I actually think the part where we are lacking in depth is that back row. Because we've seen in games where if one of those two is missing, then more often than not, Lindsay Smith plays a spell in the back row, which he's just not a back rower. He's a middle forward. He's a bit of a lightweight one compared to someone like a Liam Henry. But he's not that player. We saw it in round 1 when he played there. And there was a couple of obstruction penalties or him just getting in the way and stuff because he doesn't have the experience to run those lines that someone that plays back row would. It's one of those things where I still think Penrith will win the premiership, but it's not going to be like it was in, like, say, 2022 was peak Penrith, and then 2023 was still very, very good Penrith. Amazing Penrith. This team still is, but just a tiny little bit less.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see what's going to be sort of happening when it comes to team selections going forward, because I like the luxury of having Dane Laurie there, but he's not really doing much there.
Yeah.
So,
yep. I agree. Yep.
Yeah.
So Brian To'o, Jack, plays his 100th first grade game this weekend. Talk to us a little bit, Brian To'o, because for a gentleman that I think made his debut in 2018, 2019, he's very quickly, quite arguably, put himself into the conversation of arguably your greatest ever winger.
Yeah, I think he's our greatest ever winger. I was actually at his debut, 2019, against the Warriors. That was a shocking start to the season, and that was almost like Ivan Cleary's week, what this is with Brad Arthur, where he dropped a bunch of players. He dropped Josh Mansour, Regan Campbell-Gillard, Dallin Watene-Zelezniak, and Wonga Blake all in 1 week. Brian To'o was one of those players who came in, and he was the one who has stayed ever since. He instantly played amazingly in that game, even though Penrith got flogged. But I've heard Ivan Cleary talk about since then, in interviews that he's had, about it was about bringing in Brian To'o and his character, almost what he brings to the team, about just that lift of energy, that effort that you need when you're a struggling team. And he has absolutely reaped the rewards of it, because he's got the silky skills, he's got the great put downs and everything, but people don't rate him for that. They don't rate him in the same way that they rate like a Carlton Pereira, about this like speed machine that just knows how to find the try line. It's that he's the sort of greatest worker winger that we've got in the comp. And I think he rightfully would go down, if you were to name a greatest ever Penrith team, he would be my first choice for the wing.
It's in such a short amount of time. How do you look back in 10 years' time at this era for Penrith, and you will think of Jerome Luai and your Nathan Cleary, but Brian To'o will be that third name that you talk about as maybe the three most important, arguably, players in this era for Penrith. As I don't mean to steal a turn of phrase from other YouTubers and other podcasters out there, but genuinely, he is a different kind of winger that we've never seen before, honestly, or very rarely seen before. His work rate is second to none as a winger. And for a couple of years there, I think even at stages last year as well, just it to an untrained eye, or even sometimes to a trained eye, his work rate goes under the radar so much, man. And then you look back at what he actually does, and it's just, whoa, holy crap, and it deserves a second rewatch. And then you sit back and go, oh my God. And he was brilliant against the West Tigers just the other day as well. Speaking of a guy that was brilliant against the West Tigers, Victoria, I'll bring you into the conversation now as well. I don't mean to pump up the tires of Jack. And also just a quick shout out to Natalie, who usually comes on. And so hello to Natalie, but I'm going to mention Jack and Natalie's favorite player. And Victoria, I'm going to bring you into the conversation, because genuinely, I'm just as big a fan, well, not just as, but I am a fan of his. I think Dylan Edwards is the best player in the competition at the moment. I know Zach Lomax is on top with the Dally M's at this point in time, but I do think Dylan Edwards is the best player in the competition at the moment. I do think he should be the New South Wales fullback. I know you probably can't stand him as an Eels supporter, but Dylan Edwards is just absolutely killing it at the moment for Penrith, Victoria.
Who?
I knew you were putting someone in there. She pulls the great like straight face, but occasionally like one corner of the mouth just like, and I'm like, oh, she's got a joke.
Nah, look. Stevie Wonder could tell you how good Dylan Edwards is.
And he's not a fan of footy.
I think genuinely what is so frustrating as an opposing fan is you could sit there and go, Dylan Edwards had a bit of a quiet game. And then you look at the stats or you rewatch the replay and you go, oh, never mind. No, he didn't. Because he isn't a very, well, he has his moments, but he's not typically a flashy fullback. He doesn't, have that crazy footwork or anything like that. But then he pulls out these crazy moments where you go, how the hell did he do that? Like, what the hell? I remember we were at that Roosters game in round 3, 4, whatever it was. And he scored off his own kick in the in goal. Like, I was like, come on, man, piss off. Like, and I genuinely, of all the players at Penrith, he won the goddamn Clive Churchill against my team in the grand final. I don't hate him. I really don't. I can't. Because firstly, he seems like a very nice guy. He's not the egotistical ones, like, where it hurts a little bit. Like, you just got to respect what he does. And that doesn't mean I don't respect what the other players do. But when, they score over your fullback and then salute, you're dead to me. So Dylan Edwards doesn't do that. And, people joke and say that he's a boring guy because he just goes about his business. He just runs out there, destroys your team, and, goes home and puts his kids to bed. He just is like,
He eats a bland spaghetti meal every night.
100%, He is one of those guys where pepper is spicy, but,
He's like you.
Yeah, he's like me. You genuinely, when it comes to the Blues, I feel like it's a frustrating one because I feel like it's a conversation that I love having, but I just get frustrated because I don't see it changing because they made the mistake of setting someone as a captain and basically just said, you are now the captain of that team, rather than you're the captain for this game or you're the captain for this series. And so instead, they've basically just gone, here you go, Tedesco. Here's a jersey that you don't even have to earn anymore because of what you've done in the past. And
even Michael Maguire, even with Michael Maguire as the new coach, you still reckon that they'll have that same mentality of just simply selecting Tedesco. Yeah.
I don't know if it's just like trauma, but I just genuinely and it's killed State of Origin for me. Honestly, I get frustrated by it too much now, and I get so dejected because I just, there's so much potential that I feel like they ignore basically based off past reputation and, we got to do the right thing. He's the most capped Blues player. I don't care, didn't ask. So it's just one of those things where I want them to pick based off the form. And it is very, very clear that the most informed fullback that plays for the Blues is Dylan Edwards.
Bloody oath. No, bloody oath. Well said. And just quickly, I just got to give a shout out to Ryzen Nathan, who says that Dylan Edwards is the looker. He's the looker of the NRL at the moment. And just want to say hello to Jeffrey for tuning in. Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody that's tuned in. And you can check out Dating the Enemy via the links in the description below at the conclusion of this live stream. So thank you very much. Just one more comment from William Hunt. Maguire does the right thing selecting Teddy as one. As a Queensland supporter, I agree. As a Queensland supporter, yes, you would agree with Tedesco being selected as the fullback, mate. My turn.
Oh, yeah, your team.
Yeah.
My turn. This team is way too talented individually to be dishing up the shit that they've been dishing up since round one. Where does that mongrel go where they showed in 2022 so rapidly, so quickly? we've moved on from Dean Young and we've brought in a Warriors defensive coach. Last year, the Warriors defense was top 4, top 3. And I know it takes time for systems to be implemented correctly and to learn, but we should be a hell of a lot better than that with the players that we've got at our disposal. The errors are completely unacceptable. The missed tackles are resembling our season of 2021. The same 3 or 4 players every single week are keeping us above water and that is Tom Dearden, Ruben Cotter, Kyle Felt, and Reece Robson. And I think Reece Robson has worked so hard that he has earned himself a starting hooker position, potentially. Api Coruscant is going all right, but he's going to be right there in the New South Wales camp when teams are selected in a few weeks' time. The Cowboys, I feel like, are just a bit too comfortable up there in Townsville. James Maloney's come in from France and he's given a little bit more positivity, I guess. I mean, it's not one of the greatest things to hear that you had to bring someone in to bring positivity into the group. But James Maloney's come in and maybe things are a little bit too blasé, a little bit in North Queensland. But this team is so much better than what they're dishing up. And, we're sitting in 8th position. Season's not done yet or anything like that. But after last weekend, our status of being premiership contenders is hanging on by the absolute barest of margins at this stage. Obviously, only the one-eyed tragics believe that they can come back and be a contender. But one of my main problems defensively is that, it's hard because Jeremiah Nene and Kuli Kefufena-Fuiaki, they're both very, very young, no older than 22, 23 years of age, especially Kuli Kefufena-Fuiaki. And whilst sometimes their runs will have a bit of punch, they're not producing enough. And they're also still finding themselves defensively. They're still not of a mature age and they're still trying to find their feet defensively, I feel like. So for a team that was supposedly thought to have had the best edge forwards in the competition in Lukey, Nene, Fena-Fuiaki, and so on and so forth, I don't think they've produced anywhere near good enough what they're capable of producing, unfortunately. And Todd Payton said in his press conference after our bashing last Sunday that he would make changes. He's made one change in our team list, and that brings in Thomas McKaylee, and punted is Jack Gajewski, and that will be the final time that we see him. I think Gajewski produced about 4 runs for 20 meters in 2 or 3 weeks of footy. So that will, that's it for him, sort of a thing. But without Tom Dearden, Reece Robson, and Ruben Cotter, we'd be in a serious world of pain right there with the Gold Coast Titans and the South Sydney Rabbitohs. And however, there is stuff to be amped up for. We're back in front of our home fans for the first time in 3 weeks. It's Anzac round. It's a Garrison City, Townsville. Kyle Felt becomes the 10th player in Cowboys history to reach 200 games. Absolutely enormous year for Kyle Felt so far. Chad Townsend reaches 250 himself. Hopefully he can kick the stitching out of the ball this Saturday night as well. And what's interesting too is that Kyle Felt, if I'm not mistaken, Felt versus To'o this weekend is going to be a matchup, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I might be. Anyway. Yeah, I think I'm right in saying that it's Felt versus To'o this weekend. But look, Sunia Taruva, he was my rookie of the year last year, and he's putting on some serious hurt in the try-scoring stakes. He's scoring lots and lots of tries this year, and he's one man that we need to shut down. But our forward pack coming up against Moses Leota and James Fisher-Harris, if there's any game over the past 18 months, forget about a game where you got pumped by the Tigers last year, or forget the last round last year against Penrith where we could have won and got into finals, but we produced duck egg if there's any game over the past 18 months where they've really got to have themselves some raw meat for the next couple of days and listen to the heaviest, darkest metal music on planet Earth and then come out rip roaring on Saturday night, this is the game, Anzac Day game, against the competition's best of the past 4 seasons. While we're not full strength completely, Penrith Panthers are, every time we seem to come up against Penrith over the past 3 years, it has always been a pretty big game, a kind of a special occasion as well. And this Saturday is no exception to that as well. So Cowboys, we've tried to stand up to Penrith over the past couple of years at full strength, and we've fallen badly. 22-0 and 44-12 last season. What have you fucking got? What have you got this Saturday night, Cowboys? Because Nathan Cleary's first game in 5 or 6 weeks, he's going to be chomping at the bit. They're all completely full strength. This Penrith side is full strength. You gotta arc up and get fucking mean this Saturday night, Cowboys, and show some of that defense. And I don't give a fuck if they win by 4 points to 2. I don't care. You restrict them to as minimal points as possible and don't play too cute. We might have, or you might have, the best attack in the competition. Don't fucking play cute against this Penrith Panthers outfit, because they'll just laugh at you. They'll stand tall, they'll knock you down, and they'll just fucking laugh at you. So sorry for me language, but such is the situation that North Queensland find themselves in, like legitimately. I believe in this team, always do, always have. I do think that they can turn it around, but they got to show something, because if their souls are taken, which could very well be taken by the end of Saturday night, we might not have anything to fall back on for the rest of the season. So in saying that, hopefully someone out there in Townsville has heard this, and I'm going to tip the Cowboys to win this game. Of course, Cowboys are going to win this game approximately 18 points to 16. Jack, how do you see this game playing out, mate?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I think you look, Penrith's attack hasn't been where it should be this season, I don't think. I think if you look at, if anyone follows Rugby League Eye Test, his Twitter account, his blog, he's provided some very interesting stats. Particularly, one I want to focus on is expected points for and against, which he uses an algorithm for that based on field position and how many points you should be scoring based on where you are on the field. And Penrith are largely underperforming in terms of they should have scored more points, right? The Cowboys are insanely largely underperforming in terms of they should have conceded way less points. And so it's an interesting one where you go an attack that's struggling, granted the halfback returns, versus a defense that's almost not turning up. And that's one where one of them is going to click back into gear. I think it's Penrith's attack this week. I can see Penrith, I can still see them only scoring, say, maybe like 22 points. I'd say 4 tries. And I can see the Cowboys being limited to maybe 2 tries. I think you're completely right about the players that are standing up for the Cowboys and the players that just aren't. Like the back rowers, they're very talented, but they're almost not. They almost don't enjoy the dirty work yet. And you see some back rowers, it takes them till they're like 26, 27, 28 before they turn into that elite back rower that does all of that stuff. So that's possibly an issue, having 2 very young back rowers, despite the amount of talent they've got. But it also means that if they turn it on, then it'll be on. And so I'm wary of the Cowboys. I'm not going to write them off, but God, they need to perform better than they did last week, especially given that Penrith will happily grind that sort of victory out. Like they were playing this type of game last week that Penrith likes to play. Like they were, Penrith would fucking lick their lips at that sort of performance from the Cowboys. So I can see, Penrith sort of scoring 4 tries, maybe only like 1 try in the first half, and then 3 as it goes on, and then limiting the Cowboys to 2. So I'm going to say 22-12 to Penrith.
Fair score. Victoria, how do you see this game panning out?
I feel like it's going to be a close one, if I'm completely honest. You know, I feel like the easy option is to say, well, if Sharks could do it, then, you know, Penrith can do it. But you cannot write off the fact that it's in Townsville. Penrith have struggled in Townsville the last couple of years. When was the last time they won in Townsville?
2020 maybe? We won the minor premiership in 2020, yeah.
Okay, well, so there you go, a couple of years. Albeit those two games, they weren't full strength, but still, that doesn't matter. I actually am anticipating Cleary to not quite fire yet. You know, I feel like it's natural to say, oh, they've just come off a hamstring injury where they actually had a setback. We also saw a photo where Cleary had an ankle brace last weekend, at Bathurst. And so I don't know if maybe that was like he's carried it for a while, this little ankle injury as well, or if it's like because your body obviously compensates with a hamstring and like you walk a little bit funny and then he's kind of done his ankle bit there. I'm not too sure 100%. I don't think Penrith have said anything about it, but I do truly believe they wouldn't be playing him unless he was fit, because no way are they going to risk him. But I think himself as a player and the team know the longevity of the season and the fact that it is only round 8. And I wouldn't be surprised so much if they say, like, not the end of the world. Ease off a little bit. You know, you don't need to go out, like, absolutely firing. And I think Luai has actually been quite disappointing for me this year. I think I don't think he's stepped up. Obviously, nowhere, you know, as relatable as, say, someone like Dylan Brown without Moses. But he's just not, you know, I don't think he's taken the team. I don't think he's taken full control of the team and kind of driven them as well as he could maybe in the past, or I'm not too sure 100%. And so I have a feeling that this isn't actually going to be the week that we will see Penrith finally click. I think it's next week, because that's when they have Souths, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm expecting them to destroy Souths, just a little like one extra like preview. But I think this week is going to be a little bit more of a challenge. And I think if the Cowboys are going to win it, Townsville is what will get them home. And I'm seeing someone like Scott Drinkwater to finally like kind of click into gear. And he's like, you can't deny he's an incredible player.
He's so rocks and diamonds this year.
But he is very rocks and diamonds this year. And I'm anticipating this game to be a little bit like the one we did see a few weeks ago. But this time the Cowboys are playing the role that Para played. And they just need to win it more. And they're at home. And I don't know if they'll do it. I think I'm going to play it safe in my tip and still go with Penrith. But I'm also anticipating a very close game. And I think I'm going to go with something like 14-12. And they win it on a like penalty goal.
She just wants to have a heart.
Yeah. You go, I'll take 22-12. I'll take 14-12. Just so seriously, bring some fucking mongrel this Saturday night, boys. Like, show some pride in that defense, because it hasn't been there all season long. So yeah, I'm going to go 18-16 Cowboys. And yeah, Victoria, do you have any pointers on how to win in Queensland Country Bank Stadium as well, seeing that knowing that, you've won up there?
Well,
remember
I'm
that
not going to
game?
lie. There are still many moments of the game that I don't really remember, because I'm pretty sure I was in cardiac arrest the entire time. Yep. Genuinely, like, not to do this to you. I'm not trying to be a mean person, but I've had a very sad existence as a Parramatta fan. And the only thing that sometimes brings me joy is just reflecting on that game, because, we got so lucky and we were able to be there. I can't sit there and try to say how Para did it, especially after what we've seen from them this year and last year, because that makes me sit there and go, how did they do that? Like, it really makes no sense. But I feel like a big thing, and it's such a cliche, but play for 80 and defend your errors. I think if there's one thing Penrith can do, it is capitalize on a team's error. And if you make an error and you're able to turn it around, or just at least defend it, your chance to win that game. Whereas to win in Townsville, I think that's a big thing is Penrith. All they have to do is jump on any mistake or any error that they can, because it's essentially, when you look at it, that is an advantage that you're giving a team if you drop a ball or you give up a penalty or whatnot. And if there's one thing Penrith loves, it's a leg up.
On your Victoria. Tell it like it is. Go on, sink the boot into him. Anyways, look. Let's move on to the next game. I'm so thankful that you guys have given up your entire evening to wobble your jaws about this season. No, don't apologize. I've loved every second of the conversation so far. No, not at all, Jack. No, not at all, mate. No. So let's move on to the next game. Sunday afternoon footy now. It is the Dolphins versus the Newcastle Knights, and I'll tell you what, these are two teams that I just can't seem to put my finger on every single week so far. Going into the odds for this game, the Dolphins, they're $1.42. The Knights right now are sitting at $2.90, but I can see that exploding out closer and closer before game day. In a really nice piece of news as I bring you guys back, for the Newcastle Knights, there is a debutante of a young man that impressed in the trials. David Armstrong takes the place of Kalen Ponga at fullback, and Kalen Ponga, we know now, is at least out for 2 months. Tyson Gamble and Jackson Hastings are the halves pairing, and that is an ongoing soap drama every single week. And then going into the reserves for the Newcastle Knights, Crossland Saifidi, Jed Cartwright and Brodie Jones. And then shifting into the Redcliffe Dolphins now, Connor Lemuelu, I guess he is named on the reserves, I think, so he could be a late inclusion. But other than that, it's all systems go. Jack, starting with you, mate, isn't it good to see some names that haven't been in the spotlight and they're starting to get some of that traction in the likes of a Jack Bostock? You've got a Isaiah Katoa, who you might know a little bit more than Victoria and myself, and then Trey Fuller as well. It's just every time you watch Dolphins, you always see a player, someone, or you get to sort of know a player a little bit differently, and a player that you don't really know of before. So, but what's your opinion on Isaiah Katoa so far this year? Because we spoke about inform halfbacks a couple of minutes ago, and Isaiah Katoa is storming up that ladder of best halfbacks in the competition this year.
Yeah, he seems to have found his feet as a first grader and discovered really what he's going to be. I've known for a long time how talented he is, just from watching him in Penrith's junior grades. And it is a shame that the Dolphins bloody stole him off us, despite us raising him from the womb. He's a fantastic talent, and I think he's really matured as well. Because we know that he has the ability to, say, throw a 3-man cutout pass to the winger, someone like Bostock, who's also on a hot run of form, as you said. But he's got, the maturity to pick his moments, to know when to do it. Beyond his age, really. You see a lot of young halfbacks that take until like their mid-20s, really, before they do mature as a player. And he seems to just be doing it so quickly. I can imagine, a lot of Wayne Bennett's influence really helps with that. Plus, having other halves around you like Sean O'Sullivan as a guide, who is someone who did come in as a young player who didn't quite succeed, but seems to be quite a level-headed person. Perhaps it's just influences like that that really, really help him. And I think he is he's emblematic of the Dolphins as a team. Like, they're really good. I'm on board. Fins up. Let's go.
Yeah,
I think they're a serious team, and I think they're a serious threat for the competition. The fact that you can go, oh, geez, Tabuai-Fido's out. That's really bad. And then Trey Fuller comes in, and you're like, where's this guy been hiding? Why has he not been playing NRL for 7-8 years? I don't understand. He's so talented. He's so good. And then, you got players like Max Plath who come in, and he looks like a seasoned NRL lock already, despite me not knowing who he was until he tried to break a player's leg a few weeks ago. It's one of those things where this Titans team, they brought in all these old hardened players, and they seem to have had a perfect influence on these youngsters coming through, because they play like they're at their peak when we know that their birth certificate says they're nowhere near it yet.
Yeah, definitely. Victoria, what have you made about the Dolphins yourself? Because as I said before, I think the Dolphins and the Newcastle Knights for me are the two teams that I just can't seem to wrangle in. I can't seem to fall on whether or not they're good or not so far. It sort of did solidify itself with one team this past Sunday, but by and large, I just haven't been able to wrangle them in. What's your opinion been on the Dolphins this year?
Well, I'm very bitter, so I'm going to say the Dolphins are dead to me.
You're a big fan of fish.
Yes, true. Yes.
No, in all sincerity, yeah, they've honestly really surprised me. I had them like, they might get a win here or there, but what they have obviously shown, and what you guys were just going into, is they've, over this just year, have developed some depth, which has started to come out now. And they were missing like 7 of their main players, 6-7 of their main players, and obviously absolutely destroyed Para. And even in that first half, where it was a little bit more of a challenge, I never thought they looked bad, to be honest. I think this year we have seen moments where they've looked, poor, but I would say the same for the entire comp at the moment. And so I also I don't think they're a contender in the sense that I still see a team like Penrith handling them easily. And we saw that the Broncos handled them easily. So I wouldn't say contender just yet, but I think they're a shake-up team. I could see them shaking up the ladder and, maybe making a couple of teams feel a little bit uneasy when they're trying to secure, say like 5th or 6th place, stuff like that. I could see them, I wouldn't be surprised if they made the 8, to be honest. But I also could see them like fighting for, say, that, like 8th, 9th, 10th spot. I see them like in the middle of the ladder, and that's where they they're that team that you go, oh, I don't know, they could cost us that home final, or they could cost us this, that. I don't see them as a contender, but I can see them, as that team where you go, you never go into it thinking you've got the game won.
Well,
So, sorry. I see, if I'm completely honest, after what I saw the Bulldogs do to Newcastle, I don't see the betting odds getting closer. I see them blowing out. I think the Dolphins will handle Newcastle easily.
It is such a shame to say as well, man. Like Kalen Ponga, what sort of injuries do the Newcastle Knights have? Just off the top of their head, like Jaden Brayley's come back in for them. Crossland's still there. They've still got their halves pairing. Their backline is essentially full strength. Go David Armstrong this Sunday. Like he had himself an exceptional trial period at the start of the season and really impressed a few people. But just even with Ponga there, they are flat as attack, man. And the halves, the half situation of them not able to solidify on a pairing so far is really kicking their asses at the moment. I've been super disappointed. I think we all have been super disappointed in the Newcastle Knights, but who the hell am I? We saw what this team did on Sunday, but the Newcastle Knights, man, they weren't any better than what we were this past Sunday. They were out of it from the get-go, honest to goodness. So, I'm right there with you, Victoria. I'm going to give my tip and scoreline now. I'm going to go the Dolphins to win this game. I think that they just got way too much energy for the Newcastle Knights at this moment. I think they're going to run rings around them a bit. I don't want to say 13 plus, but I think it'll be comfortable enough in the end. I will go something akin to a 26-18 sort of a scoreline, I reckon. I still think Knights will score a try or two. I think even though that they dominated, with all due respect, Victoria, that they dominated Eels last weekend, the Eels still were able to score 3 or so tries there. It'll be interesting to see how Jackson Hastings and Gamble go this weekend, but I'm going to go the Dolphins to win this game 1-12, but like a comfortable 1-12. Jack, how do you reckon?
Yeah, it's really interesting because Newcastle have been playing terribly, and it's another one where you look at the coach's decisions with, firstly the halves pairing, and you go, what's your plan here? Like, have you thrown the plan out of the window and you don't have a plan B and you're just like throwing shit until it sticks?
Yeah.
And I really wonder what that's going to do. I think if they are to win a game, they're going to have to defend their way there because there's no cohesion in attack at the moment. You've now lost your best player and the best attacking weapon. Armstrong, he looked really, really good, especially in that first trial. I remember he absolutely tore it up.
Yep.
So I'm keen to see how he runs around. I'm happy for him. It's still, he's not Kalen Ponga. No one really is. It's interesting. I think they would have to defend their way to a win if they were to get one. But based on what we've seen, I don't think they have it in them to defend their way to a win. And the Dolphins are just this like, if you score 30, I'm going to score 34 kind of team. And so, I can see the Dolphins winning sort of like 30 to 14. I'm going to go a 16-point win.
Okay.
I'm probably going 13 plus, but it's not, it's not a 13. It's not a 16-point thrashing, but at no point during the game are you going to think the Knights are going to win.
No. And look, the question in the comments section, you're like, how are the Knights going to score points? Well, you've got Greg Marzu up against Jermaine Azarko, if I'm not mistaken, this weekend. Marzu, he can use his power to get over the top of Azarko. David Armstrong, we've seen the likes of debutants scoring on their first ever game this year, so maybe he will bring a little bit of energy to the Newcastle Knights. There's plenty of ways that they can score some points. It's just more of a question on what the Dolphins' defense could be like come this Sunday. Victoria, how do you think this game's going to go?
Yeah, I think it's a hard one to pick scoreline wise. I think Dolphins. I think that's an easy pick in my opinion. But the scoreline, I'm really thrown. I don't know because it's hard because we haven't seen. I don't think we've consistently seen their spine 2 weeks in a row. It feels like this whole season. It feels like God every damn week. I'm waiting for them to put Crossland at 5/8 now. It feels like they're kind of just going, which one's going to be this week? We'll make up our mind game day. And so the super coach player in me says, please Tyson Gamble, do something because I've lost Ezra Mam, so now I'm screwed. But the reality mind, I think where Newcastle lose it is the forwards, in my opinion, and by that I mean like the props and Adam Elliott at lock, because they've got a very strong second row, in my opinion, and we've seen what their edges can do. Like Bradman Best still looked threatening with the ball, even in an absolute thrashing against the Bulldogs. But similar to the Bulldogs, they maybe are relying on those kind of like spark moments from a guy like Marzu or Bradman Best, and that's just not good enough if your forwards are just being run through. And so I think that from the Dolphins, I'm predicting, similar to the Parramatta game, that it will be a close first half, and then the Dolphins will run away with it.
Okay.
So I'm going 28-12.
28-12. Alrighty, all right. And also, you've got the likes of Dane Gagai in there who hasn't been bad this year, to be perfectly honest. I know last week didn't turn out well, but did he play last weekend? Anyway, Gagai has been really, really strong for Newcastle Knights this season as well. And Kai Pearce-Paul in that second row, I think he was in the conversation for Rookie of the Year maybe 3 weeks ago, but he's got to turn the wheel back in his favour, turn the tide back in his favour if he wants to get anywhere near it. So final game of the round for Anzac round, Canberra versus Cronulla down at GIO Stadium, and on Sportsbet the Raiders are $2.83. The Sharks are $1.43, and this will be the 83rd match between the two clubs, and it sits at 41 wins apiece between the two. These two sides obviously met this season just a couple of weeks ago. Raiders shot out to an 18 points to nil lead, and then the Sharkies came roaring back into calculations. The Sharkies, they have not won in Canberra since the year 2018. However, before that victory in 2018, they were on a 6-game winning streak in Canberra, so they don't really fear it. They've just been unlucky in recent times, have the Cronulla Sharks. I'm going to bring up this backline, Victoria. This backline, 1 through to 7 for the Canberra Raiders, is one of the most graphically young sides I can recall ever seeing. This is an insanely young backline. Stewart, Schiller, Timoko, Chris, Savage, Strange, and Weeks. That is super raw. And in 5 years, 4 years' time, that's going to be an insanely talented backline. What are your thoughts on the Canberra Raiders youngsters so far in 2024, Victoria?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because even though they're so young, I think they're so energetic and electric that I don't know, I don't see it as any signs of concern except for, how do they handle it if they fall behind? And we didn't actually see the game on the weekend because we were driving back from Bathurst, but from what I heard, Chevy Stewart did not have a good game. But from following up from that, a lot of people said that they thought it was going to actually make him a better player, how bad of a game he actually had, because he still just kept having a crack. And I think it's very, very easy to drop your head, throw up your hands, and just kind of go, I'm young, I'm inexperienced, it is what it is, and kind of go into your shell and leave it to like the more experienced players. But I think, except for maybe Hughes, I'd go to say I think Strange is the informed 5/8 this year. He's just been absolutely killing it. And I think it's that little bit of a mentality, kind of like what I was mentioning with Sanders before, where it's, I don't know, you've got the whole world in front of you and like nothing in it. You're just kind of like, all I can do is go out and play footy, try to cement myself. And I think obviously it helps playing off someone like Jamal Fogarty, and he doesn't have that for a fair few more weeks. But I think he would get a lot of confidence from these first like near 2 months. I actually think they're a chance for this game, if I'm completely honest, because these are confident players. They don't seem like that Canberra team. Again, I didn't see the game on the weekend, so I really don't know. But they still, I don't think that game can define them this year, because we've seen them manage a win when it looks like it's gone. We've seen them absolutely destroy a team. Don't know who that was. We've seen them like play well at home, the whole likes. We've seen the whole package from them this year. And I think they seem like the type that can kind of sit there and go, last week sucked, on to the next week. What can we do from here? And I hope that for them. Because as much as I hate Ricky Stewart, I do love seeing young players like what we are seeing with the Raiders this year, and a guy like Tapani absolutely killing it in the forwards. And I'm expecting Braden Trindle's incident to rattle the Sharks a little bit.
I agree with you that the Braden Trindle incident might rattle them. Yeah, he's not been bad. I don't think he's set the world alight, but they've been good. They've been a good combination this year. And Nico Hines, for all the memes that has been about him, not playing and then getting 4 Dally M points because he didn't play. Nico Hines, he's been good without being great. So we really need to see that 2022 form come roaring back into life for young Nico Hines. Daniel Atkinson, I wish I could say more about him, but I just don't. We haven't seen him in first grade. I don't watch New South Wales Cup. I just cannot give anybody a summarization on how he goes. Sione Katoa comes back into the fold for the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks, pushing out Mr. Stone Street. But that news about Dale Finucane also effective immediately retiring today, Jack, that might offset the drama that happened with Braden Trindle. It's been a day of drama for Cronulla, or news of Cronulla, I should say, with the Trindle incident and Dale Finucane effective immediately retiring. That might offset the drama from Braden Trindle. How do you reckon the Sharks will play this weekend, Jack?
Yeah, the Sharks are an interesting one. With regards to Atkinson, he's very talented, but he's not seemed yet in his opportunities at this level to be able to sort of take the game by the scruff of the neck and really control the fixture. It's almost sort of passed him by a little bit, and I think this game with this Canberra Raiders team, which is like the epitome of like Holden Cup, Toyota Cup vibes, where it's their backline is 7 runners that would make a great touch footy team. I think there's an opportunity there for him to do that. The fact that Dale Finucane can retire and you can say, well, it's actually not going to be that big of a miss just due to the strength of their team at the moment. And also, obviously his injuries have taken a toll on him as well. But, it's a strong forward pack, particularly the edge back rowers and the lock. I think Cam McInnes is an incredible player. The 2 props, I think you've got Tom Hazelton, who does a very good, respectable job. I think the others could lift a little bit. This Rise on saying that we don't dislike any teams. Just take a look at Victoria's Twitter for 5 minutes and just see that that's not quite the case. But yeah, I think it's a tremendous opportunity for Cronulla to continue their good form. It's going to be a real test of their character, really, I think, how they get over today's news, especially given the fact that it really is a game that they should be winning when you look at it on paper. I'm just not confident that they will, though. That Canberra team excites me. They are fearless. They're runners. They look like every try they score would be from 50 out, which probably means that, you can defend your way to a win if you just give them a lot of field position. But yeah, I'm really not sure. This is such a weird game. The fact that the history is drawn makes so much sense, because these are 2 like deeply unserious clubs, but in the most fun way. Like, they're not going to win the comp, but you don't mind watching them.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make about either team, and the fact that they played each other 4 weeks ago and the Raiders gave up an 18-0 lead. It's just so Raiders versus Sharks, isn't it? So
yeah,
I don't know. I really don't know.
So we've got Matt Timoko coming up against, if I'm not mistaken, Jesse Ramian this weekend. Holy smokes. And Ronaldo Mulatalo, I think, would be going up against James Schiller. So Schiller, while he's got something about him, I like Schiller, man. I'm sorry to use this phrase, Victoria, please don't hurt me, but he does have X factor about him, James Schiller. I like James Schiller. He's got a little bit of Milo in his cup. But I think just some of the defense, though, I think Mulatalo might be able to exploit that. Katoa is a great player himself, and he's going to be lining up on Xavier Savage. That's a one-on-one matchup that I'm looking forward to. But Victoria mentioned that it's not going to be a game for the Raiders that will define them last weekend. That's just one of those games that you see every once or twice a year for a young man, whether he be a debutant or a man in his mid-20s. Chevy Stewart will bounce back. I watched a majority of that contest, and yes, about 4 of those tries were his fault, but that's because Ezra Mann and Jock Madden were putting spirals up in the middle of a monsoon, and young man in his second ever game playing at Suncorp, he just had himself a torrid time, and he learnt exactly what first grade is all about. But yes, absolutely credit to him. He was a bit of a pit bull in that sense, that he just kept on playing to the best that he could, even though his confidence was dented last weekend. So it will be very, very intriguing to see how Chevy Stewart retaliates and how this entire team does retaliate. Because Raiders were the better team inside that first 15 minutes of that game, I thought. And Hudson Young nearly was the first try scorer, save for a knock-on, an unlucky knock-on in that sense as well. So that first 15 minutes, if they can sort of just eject maybe the middle portion as well, because they ended up winning the second half as well, the Canberra Raiders, just quietly against the Brisbane Broncos. If they can just remove 40 minutes or 30 minutes either side of halftime in total, and just focus on some of that good stuff that they produced at the first 15 minutes and like the last 20 minutes of that game. Yeah, I'm with you, Jack, man. This is I'm excited for this game, bro. I'm really excited for this game. I think this young Raiders outfit, man, like sometimes youth can be the death of you, or sometimes it can be the best thing for you, because they're the unknown. You're still learning the tricks of the trade, and you're still trying to learn how these players go about their business. I'm really excited about it, but that forward pack up against the Sharks forward pack as well, I'm excited for this game, man. And I know the last contest was a little bit, it did blow out in the end. It was a bit of a messy game, but if it's a dry track, this should be a good game. However, I am going to tip the Sharks. I'm not a believer of them being a contender just yet. There is a game that they've got down at Amy Park against the Storm in about two weeks' time. The Sharks, that's the game that we're all going to sit down and watch and go, are you for real? But for right now, I am going to go the Cronulla Sharks. I do think they're in a lot better form, and Ethan Strange and KO Weeks as a halves combination. I mean, if they win, it'll be another famous victory for this Raiders club, and won't Ricky Stewart love it in his press conference? But I'm going to go the Cronulla Sharks to win this game. I don't know how many points the Raiders will be able to score with such a young backline. I guess I'll go something like a 24-12 sort of scoreline to the Sharkies. Victoria, what do you reckon?
This is my most difficult pick for the week, in my opinion. And of course, it's always the Sunday night game, just to kill you. I feel like this is the most typical Raiders game to win, but it would also be typical of the Sharks to lose this game. So like it's just like, which one do we get? And I think just to spice things up, and we've had a great 2 hours, 13 minutes chat so far. Looks like we're in for a good weekend. I'm going to pick the draw.
Ooh!
I love it. A little bit of variety. Yep, I love it. Wow. Jack, what do you reckon, mate? Jack, what do you reckon, mate?
I respect that. I respect it. I'm not going to tip the same. You know what? You tip Sharks. You tip draw. I'll tip Raiders. That way we've all got something different.
Yo.
You know what? I don't feel too strongly either way about it. So that makes me think that it's the right thing to do. The Raiders, their Oztag team of the backline are going to come out. They're going to put on some prime Sean Johnson step and then sprint through the line. Chevy Stewart will get a try. James Schiller will get 3. And they will win. They will win 36-30.
You've been an absolute
6 tries to 5, 100% goal kicking.
You've been an absolute maniac today, Jack. You've been an absolute maniac.
Tipping has broken me.
Oh man. All right. Well, that's it. That is. Listen, I really appreciate your time. I didn't think we'd go this long, but I've enjoyed every bloody second of it, and I hope you have. You guys have as well. Again, links to their podcast, guys. Dating the Enemy is going to be found in the description box below at the conclusion of this live stream. But I really hope that you guys, Dating the Enemy, have enjoyed yourselves, and I hope that any of you are out there, and there's been a consistent trickling of people that's come in and watched it. So thank you to you. Thank you for your time for watching. Dating the Enemy. When's the next episode?
Should we record tomorrow?
Yeah, we'll record tomorrow.
Yeah, we were like, you know what? It's going to be so easy doing a podcast together. Like, we literally live together. We're going to just bang them out, then edit them, get them out. It's not that easy when we're two unorganized people. We'll do one tomorrow. Yeah. I'm determined to not let happen to it what I let happen to Big Cat Chat, where we just stopped recording.
Yeah.
And that's why it's easy to do it with the person that you live with. Come along, have a listen. We basically just disagree with each other in the least respectful way you can possibly imagine. And that's our relationship.
Yeah.
It's pretty much that put into a bottle, because it's rugby league, and it's us.
There's love, but no respect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Awesome. No, seriously, again, I said it at the start, and I'll say it again. Every time I seem to do a live stream with either yourself, Jack, or you, Victoria, it always seems to be a special occasion. And I'll always look forward to whenever we do collaborate once or twice this season. And again, shout out to Natalie as well. Congratulations on her birth of her child. And congratulations, because you two got engaged only 2 months ago? What? It was 2 months ago?
Yeah, 2nd of February.
Yeah, 2.5.
Yo. If you don't mind me asking, any date yet?
Yeah, we actually managed, super lucky. Our 4-year anniversary falls on a Saturday next year. So May 10th, we will be getting hitched.
There you go.
Sorry to my 85th birthday. No one's going to be going to her party because they'll all be at our wedding.
She can still have a birthday cake, and I'm sure she'd still love the wedding cake as well. But guys, congratulations on the engagement. I hope the smoothest ride for you, but it is going to be a ride for the next 12 months for sure. My sister got engaged a couple of years ago, and she had herself a ride as well for sure. But it was beautiful every friggin' day, mate. But no, congratulations to you both, and thank you so much for your time. I've loved every second of this. Thank you.
No, thank
you very much.
Thank you so much for having us, and thank you for I think Ryan was one name, but a couple of people who have actually watched this rambling for almost 2.5 hours. Genuinely, we really appreciate it.
No, absolutely we do. And again, link to their podcasts will be in the description box below very, very shortly. Enjoy your weekend. Lest we forget, by the way, thank you to the Diggers. It is Anzac Day in a couple of days' time. It's Anzac round. And it's always a fantastic weekend this time of year. The unofficial Australia Day, basically. Have a very nice weekend, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you. Take care. Adios.